Somebody on the thread for personal finance in Reddit said that they're thinking about or considering withdrawing from their brokerage account to pay off cars. So I'm gonna read through the scenario and talk about what I think. Now, I haven't read this in detail. My boyfriend literally just sent it to me and was like, "Oh, you need to talk about this. This is a question that I know is gonna be a juicy one." So we're gonna go through it, and then I'll give my best hot take. So it says, I'm weighing whether to liquidate a significant portion of my brokerage account to pay off my cars. I feel like that's like a very common thing. People don't like having a lot of debt. So they see a little bit of cash saved somewhere or piled up somewhere and they start thinking, oh, I should take it out. My current brokerage balance is $62,000. If I withdraw about $45,000, I could pay off our 2 vehicles, which is the overwhelming majority of our remaining debt. I plan to keep both vehicles for the foreseeable future. Payments are $440 and $550, and I pay an extra $200 a month on each towards principal. Interest rates are 6.5% on the $15,000 balance and 7% on the $30,000 balance. I have a 6-month fully funded emergency fund, and my sinking fund for insurance and taxes is almost fully funded for 2026 renewals already. We both fund retirement accounts and have pensions and stable careers. I currently contribute about $600 a month to my brokerage, and I'd probably increase the contribution to at least $1,000 without the car payments. I've never withdrawn anything from my brokerage, but if I understand correctly, I have to pay tax on the gains. You're right about that. I'm pretty sure I could pull from the investments I've owned for more than 12 months. With the way the market is performing, I'm hesitant to take money out, but I really hate having car payments. Would this be a big financial mistake? Anything I'm not considering? Okay, you know what? Honestly, I can't even say anything bad about this person. I mean, you have a very solid financial foundation. Like y'all got good jobs, you're putting money in your retirement, you have a fully funded 6-month emergency savings fund, which is twice the 3 months that most experts recommend. You have your sinking funds for next year, 2026, already funded. Like you're way better off than a lot of people. I would say than most people. So because of that, honestly, I don't think this decision is a make or break either way for your situation. It seems like it's a little bit of an emotional thing, like, it just bugs me every day when I wake up and I got to pay my car payment. Like, if it's that much of a pestilence, if it's really that much of a bother to you, and you really have to assess, like, how much does it really frustrate you? How much does it really bother you that you have to make a car payment every month? And honestly, it feels like that should just be automated anyway, and it shouldn't really bother you. You shouldn't really have to pay attention to that very much. But if it bothers you that much, and just the principle of the idea, just the fact that you have to pay is enough of a like frustration for you, then in that case, I would say you are probably leaning more towards making an emotional decision in this case and not a financial decision. Now, if maybe I'm just reading this wrong, I'm reading between the lines and reading into it too much, then maybe you feel like it's not a very emotional thing for you and you're more focused on the financial situation, then I would say, given that you have a very solid foundation, your number one primary goal right now should be maximizing wealth accumulation, because you are really good on most of the basics for finance. I mean, even some of the intermediate and advanced steps like maxing out retirement accounts and putting aside money for emergency savings and putting money in a brokerage account outside of tax advantage investments. Like, you got all of these boxes checked. So you are above average in this area. So I would say your focus and your goal should be focusing on maximizing wealth accumulation. So let's talk about those two instances, right? If it is a situation where you want to be purely emotional, then it doesn't really matter. You could take out the money from your investments and pay off the car payment. And then what that would do is probably going to free up the 450 plus the $550 car payments that you have. I think those were the numbers you said. Yeah, 440 and 550. So add that up. That right there is like $1,000. So if you're freeing up that $1,000 plus the 600 that you're already putting towards your brokerage account. So say you eliminate the car costs or the car payments and keep on putting 600. Now that creates $1,600 that you're going to be able to start investing every single month if you get rid of the car payments, right? So in some cases, like people would say, yeah, just take out the money from your retirement or take out the money from your brokerage account so that you can pay off the car payments, pay off the cars, you have no car payment, and then start putting $1,600 every single month, which is what you used to pay to the cars plus what you're already putting in your brokerage right now. That allows you to put $1,600 every single month towards your brokerage. And pretty soon you'll be able to make up the money that you took back out. Now, it's going to be a couple years, but $1,600 a month is pretty aggressive. A lot of people cannot invest that much in their retirement, let alone outside their retirement. So I would say that is definitely something you could do if you really just emotionally want to make this decision fully off of how you feel. Because I'm going to be real with you. For some people, even when the math ain't mathing, the feels be feeling. Because they really just go off of emotions. They don't necessarily get swayed or moved easily by the math and the data of it. Like they see the data, they crunch the numbers, and it's like, yeah, but I still want to do this other thing that doesn't make financial sense necessarily, or may not mathematically make sense because it makes me feel good when I wake up in the morning every day. I feel more at peace. Right. So I would say you have to decide if that's you. And if it is, then maybe you do take out the money, you completely pay off the cars, and then you start going ham on your investments back into the brokerage account, 1,600 minimum a month. If you could put more, put more. Right. So, and you probably could put more because you said you put an extra 200 on principal for each car, which is an extra 400. So technically we're talking about a minimum of $2,000 that you could put into your brokerage account, which after a year would be $24,000. And after 2 years would be $48,000. So in 24 months, you're looking at putting back exactly what you took out. And then of course the growth on that. But here's the thing about doing that. Again, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel really good. You feel at peace. You're feeling really good with the decision because emotionally the feels was feeling and you feel really good about what you did. Now you don't have a car payment every month and you're seeing yourself put $1,600 to $2,000 or more every month into your brokerage account. And that feels badass, right? Like you feel dangerous now. You're putting a $2,000 into your brokerage account every month. That's a lot of money. But what you're not paying attention to is all the work that you just undid. You've been investing for more than a year. So all that money has been compounding. All of those investments that you put in, the contributions have been compounding. And now you're going to interrupt the compounding that has already been happening. Now, I don't know how much you've been paying attention to the news and the stock market. And I also don't know exactly what you're investing in. But recently, the S&P 500 has hit some all-time highs that it has never hit before. Right? Like in the past year, in the past 2 years, there have been multiple all-time highs in the stock market. You have been able to benefit from all of that compounding, which is probably why your investment account has 60 something thousand, $62,000 in it, allowing you to even consider taking out 45K from that balance. Right? Now, if you take out the 45K and you leave the other 15 to 16, 17,000 in there, what you're doing is you're interrupting all of that beautiful compounding that has been happening. And when you think about all of the greats of investing and all the lessons that they teach us, they say it's not about timing the market and trying to figure out when it's going to go up or down. It's about time in the market. So the longer you leave money uninterrupted without withdrawing, the more wealth you will accumulate. That is just a fact because of the nature of compounding, especially if you're reinvesting any dividends. So personally, me, I'm not the feels or feeling side. I'm not the emotions. I'm the math is mathing girl. Okay. So for me, I would say, given that you have checked a lot of those boxes around your financial like foundation and the basics of your financial situation, I think you are giving me vibes of much more of like a financial nerd, more of a math person, more of a responsible person who pays attention to the data and kind of makes a decision based on logic and not emotion. So I'm going to assume that that's the case, especially because you did some research already and you already understand that there's going to be tax implications. So one, you're interrupting that beautiful compounding that's happening in your investment account that you cannot go back in time and ever get that compounding again. You can start from now going forward and create new compounding in your account, but you can never go back and compound on past compounding because you interrupted it by withdrawing the money. So you've interrupted that compounding. So that's one thing to understand. And that might not sound like a big deal, but it's a big deal. And then the second thing is the taxes. So you really have to consider what is your combined income with your wife. And if that combined income is pretty high, you're gonna pay some high taxes, anywhere from 0 to 20% in capital gains taxes. And that depends on your total combined income. So you really have to pay attention to that number as well, because yeah, you could take out 45K and pay off the cars. But then in a couple months, when tax season comes around and you go file your taxes, you have to report that you withdrew 45 grand. And that is going to be taken into consideration. How much of that was what you contributed? How much of that was capital gains? And were those long-term capital gains? It seems like they were, because you said that you have a lot of investments that you've owned for more than 12 months. So if that's the case, you're going to have to pay long-term capital gains, again, 0 to 20%, not as bad as short-term capital gains, which would be the exact same income tax brackets, right, for federal income tax. So at least you're going to be paying long-term capital gains tax if you do pay these taxes on your capital gains. But that means that you're not just paying what you owe on these cars. You're also adding to that the cost of these taxes that you're going to end up paying as well. So what I would do is I would compare the math based on your income tax bracket, based on your combined income tax with your wife, and how much that would put you in what bracket for capital gains tax, for long-term capital gains tax. Do the math on that and have an estimate of like about how much do you think that that's going to be. If it's 15%, if it's 20%, it's probably not 0%, because I highly doubt that you and your wife make a combined income of like less than $40,000, $50,000, right? So do the math on that. And that includes income, that ordinary income, earned income, and as well as capital gains, realized capital gains. So take all of that, do the math, see what that would be, compare that to the interest that you would pay over the next however many years it's going to take you to pay off the cars if you just keep making aggressive payments instead of paying it all in one shot. If the interest that you'll pay, since you have, I would say they're high, but not that high, 6.5% interest and 7% interest on these cars, on the car loans. Do the math on the 15K balance at 6.5% interest and the 30K balance at 7% interest, and do that for the next, say 2 to 3 years of you making payments. Compare that total interest fee amount that you're paying combined on both of those cars, all the interest that you're paying over the next 24 to 36 months, that number compared to the capital gains tax number that you're going to pay if you take out 45K and you have to pay capital gains tax just on the gains. You don't have to pay capital gains tax on the entire amount that you withdraw, only on the gains. So do the math on that. And if you see that it makes more sense financially to take out the 45K, just bite the bullet and pay that tax because it's less than the interest, then that would save you money in the long run. But the opportunity cost is the money could have stayed invested and it could have continued to compound and grow a lot. So that piece is always the piece that kind of like jabs me in the side. It just keeps bothering me, the fact that you're interrupting that beautiful compounding, because the longer you let that money compound, the more wealth you can accumulate over time. So I would say, me personally, looking at it from a purely math side, like the number one focus that you have is not your emotions, it's not your feelings, it's straight up just wealth accumulation. I want to make as much money as possible and I want to focus on the numbers. If that's the case, what I would do is stop putting $600 a month into your brokerage account right now. I know it feels really good to keep on contributing money into your brokerage every month, but you already have $62,000 in there. Let that money continue to compound and grow in the market, and take that $600 that you've been adding to your brokerage every month and just add that to the payments that you're making to these cars. Now, which car should you focus on? The one with the higher interest rate, not the one with the higher balance. In this case, the one with the higher interest rate is also the one with the higher balance, right? The 30K balance has a 7% interest rate, while the 15K balance has a 6.5% interest rate. So that's $600. What you should do is, it should be $800 that you're adding, because you're putting $200 extra to the principal of each of the cars that you have. Stop putting that extra $200 towards the 6.5% interest loan. What you want to do is take that $200 plus the $600 that you're investing in the brokerage right now, combine it to make an extra $800 that you're putting strictly and only towards the $30,000 car every single month because it's at a 7% interest rate, which is 0.5% higher than the 15K car loan with the 6.5% interest rate. So focus on going ham. Go as hard as you can to pay off completely the 30K car loan by adding not just 200 extra every month, 800 extra dollars on top of the car payment that you're making, which is $550. So that means you're sending $1,350 a month towards this car, even though the payment that you're required to make is only $550. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people out there because they can't imagine themselves doing that. But this is how you get rid of the loan as fast as possible, decrease the amount of interest fees that you pay so you can save as much money on interest, prevent yourself from taking out that 45K from your brokerage account, which will incur tax penalties for long-term capital gains, and allow those investments to keep on compounding so beautifully in your account without interruption. So you could get the best of all worlds if you just focus on the highest interest rate loan, getting attacked aggressively with all the extra cash you can amass. Stop. It's okay to stop investing in your brokerage. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but with a 7% car loan at a 30K balance, you're going to be able to tackle that pretty quickly by adding $1,000, by putting 800 extra dollars every month towards it. Pretty soon, you're going to be able to jump right back into your investments. So it's just a short pause so that you can become debt free and then focus all that money on your brokerage account. Personally, that's what I would do. Because again, it gives you the benefits of everything, the best tax benefits without having to incur capital gain tax. It gives you the best benefit in terms of being able to get rid of that 7% interest rate as quickly as possible. Then once you're done with that 30K interest car loan and that 7% interest, take that 800 plus the 550 that you are making towards the car payment. So that's the $1,350 and put it towards the other car loan if you still owe a balance on it, which would be $15,000 at 6.5% interest. So then you'll have both of those paid off. And at that point, you can take all of that money, the $1,350 plus the $440, and start adding all of that money to your brokerage account. And honestly, it really truly comes down to your personality. Do you want to make this decision based on emotions? And you want to just feel at peace when you wake up tomorrow saying, I don't have a car payment anymore. Woo, woo, I love this feeling. If that's you, again, the feels are feeling, even though the math ain't mathing. But if that's not you, if you really want to focus on the data, the financial, the math, the numbers, then I would do the latter decision, which is to say, do not touch your brokerage account. Just stop, pause contributions for a little while, add that money, combine it to all the extra income that you have that you're not using for needs, and pour that thing into the car loans so your car debt free, and then you can get back to investing. I really feel like people, for some reason, have a really hard time, like with the idea of pausing investments, because of course, like, putting a little bit every single month and dollar cost averaging, those are the things that we're taught that really build wealth. But if you're paying 7% interest, the average of the stock market is anywhere between 7-10%. So, it kind of might balance itself out at the end of the day. If you spend 10 years paying 7% or 5 years paying 7%, and then the market average is 7% in those 5 years, you basically add zero. So I think it is okay to pause your investments for a short stint until you pay off that debt and then get right back to investing. You're not stopping the investing. You're pausing real quick and getting right back to it. And the good thing is that when you get back to it, you get back to it supercharged, because now you're adding all the money that you were investing before, plus all the money that you used to put towards the car payments is also getting added to your investment accounts as well. And you could do that for a few years until you hit 100K or 200K or whatever number you feel really good about in your brokerage account. And then you could kind of come back down to regular 500-600 month contributions and free up some cash for you and your wife to enjoy. So I think that, again, as with a lot of decisions, it's, do you want to make the decision emotionally or do you want to make the decision financially and mathematically? Now, there's also other things that, would influence a decision. Maybe you make the decision based on lifestyle. Maybe you make the decision based on family situation. Maybe you make the decision based on location, or, there's a lot of things that might impact any given decision. But in this case, based on the way the Reddit post sounds, I think it's you deciding, do you want to make the decision based on emotion, or do you want to make the decision based on math and numbers and finance? All right, let's see. We got some Instagram comments. Great video. Another idea would be taking an SBLOC to pay off the car. Very good point from Life Insurance Refunds. That is a really great Instagram account to follow if you don't already follow it. Life Insurance Refunds, great content about how to get money back from really bad life insurance policies, and that way you can invest for your own self. I like the SBLOC idea. Basically, that's a securities-backed loan, which essentially means, or not loan, but like a line of credit, which is essentially like a loan, but it's revolving instead of an installment loan where you pay it down to zero. And basically that means that you can take out money from your own brokerage account as a loan, and then you can pay it back little by little, and then the balance becomes available again for you to spend later if you need to. So some people do an HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, where they borrow up to a certain amount from their home equity. And other people do securities-backed LOC or line of credit, which means you take up to a certain amount that you're borrowing against your equities, your stock investments in your portfolio in your brokerage account. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think you need to have a pretty high balance on that account in order to be able to get an SBLOC. So I think in order to do that securities-backed line of credit, you probably need to have like $100,000. Now, even if you do find a brokerage that will allow you to borrow against it, even if you have less than 100K, they're not going to let you borrow the entire balance. They might let you borrow maybe 50 or 60% of your balance, maybe 75% of your balance. So in this case, that might work. I mean, you have a balance of $62,000 and you're trying to borrow $45,000. So those numbers might work if the brokerage that you have allows you to take a securities-backed line of credit against an investment amount that's less than 100K, because your investment account hasn't hit 100K yet. It's only at 62,000. So I'm not sure if you would qualify for that, but you should definitely research if that's the case, because in that case, if your brokerage does allow you to take out a securities-backed line of credit, then what you can do is borrow the $45,000 from yourself out of your $62,000 balance and then pay it back plus interest, which is just a small amount of interest. You never have to pay capital gains tax because you never realize those capital gains. And assuming that the market doesn't crash and your investment portfolio doesn't go drastically down, you shouldn't be taking a ton of risk. And so that saves you money, because in the long run, instead of paying 20% or 15% of capital gains tax, you might be paying maybe a 5% or 6% or 4% interest rate to borrow that money from your own account. So that's how a lot of wealthy people do it. They don't sell their investments. They pretty much never sell the investments in their brokerage account. They just have a lot of different brokerage accounts with six figures, millions of dollars. And then instead of selling their stocks and cashing it out to go buy investments, what they do is they do a securities-backed line of credit, borrow the money against their portfolio, and then they use that borrowed money to go make moves, pay it back slowly with a small interest rate instead of having to pay those higher taxes. So it's just a way to kind of basically, I don't want to say finesse the system, because you're playing within the rules of the tax code and the financial system, but you're essentially avoiding paying capital gains tax because it's a higher amount. You're paying an interest rate or interest fees on a loan that you're taking against your own investment account. So I honestly think that that's a great idea too, but I'm just not sure if you will qualify given the $62,000 balance. In my experience, in some of the reading I've done, you have to have $100,000 to do it, but find out. And if you are eligible, that is definitely something to consider. All right, let's see. We got another question. Can you give tips on saving? Yes, I would say, first of all, if you do not have a high yield savings account, that is the pre-K level homework that you have. I mean, we're talking basic is to just move your money out of a regular savings account at a big major bank and move it to a high yield savings account, which for the most part is either going to be with an online bank, a digital only bank, or an app, a fintech app. So some of the highest interest rates right now that you can get in the summer of 2025 are going to be 4% to 5% interest on a high yield savings account. Whereas the highest interest that you would get in a regular traditional savings account, something like, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, those types of banks, you might, if you're lucky, you might get 0.2%. So it's very important to, just the most basic level is to move your cash savings and let it grow in a high yield savings account, not in a regular savings account. And then you got to start a routine. You have to start committing to, how much am I going to add to my savings account every Friday or every Sunday or every Monday, whatever day, pick a day of the week, And every single week on that day, you have to add money into your savings account. It's just your promise that you make to yourself. Now, where this money comes from, that's on you. You have to sit down and make a budget line by line by line and find out where are your budget leaks, right? Budget leaks are little areas where you're leaking out money without paying too much attention. But a lot of people say that's death by 1,000 cuts. Maybe you're stopping for Dunkin' Donuts every single morning instead of only 2 days a week or 1 day a week. You do it every single day. Or maybe it's you're shopping at an expensive supermarket for groceries and you're not budgeting out and maybe going to a wholesaler like BJ's or Costco's, right? Whatever it is in your budget, usually it's housing, food, and transportation. Those are the three most expensive parts of most average American people's budgets. So look at those three: housing, food, and transportation. If you can cut those costs down creatively, maybe rent out an empty room in your home, or if you live in an apartment, get a roommate so that you can split the rent. With groceries, definitely looking at where you can get cheaper groceries or buying in bulk and meal prepping. That saved me a lot of money in my 20s. And then for transportation, do you absolutely need to have two cars, or can you have one car? Can you make it work with one car instead of two? Or can you just not have a car, sell your car, get some cash, and then take public transportation? That might not be an option for you if you don't work in a city that has reliable public transportation. But these are all things you just have to explore and consider. And as much as you can free up from those three big categories, you can add to your high yield savings account every single week. So I would definitely say for saving, it's not necessarily how do I do this? This is really hard. I think how to do it is easy. It's set up the high yield savings account and make weekly contributions into that account. The hard part is, where's the money coming from? And in order to know that, you have to either look through your budget to find extra money, squeeze money out of your budget, or create new income sources. So start Uber Eats, door dashing, start doing side hustles, start picking up extra hours, start editing videos for people who are creating content on social media, start, whatever things you can do for extra money. And then that extra money will go towards your savings every single week. So this is a very personal case by case basis in terms of where the money comes from and how much you add. But the fact is, it has to be a high yield savings account so you can maximize that interest that you're earning. And it has to be a weekly or monthly promise that you make to yourself. Weekly or monthly, I'm adding money no matter what. Right. And if I have to work extra to figure out where that extra money to make extra money, that's what I got to do. All right, I'm gonna hop over to YouTube. I had some comments over here. Sam, I am. You're back. Hey, Ellie, glad I caught you on live. Queen, did you ever talk about getting a will to protect your assets? Or Janelle's eating healthy tips. Yeah, eating healthy tips. I definitely need to do a whole series on that because I feel like when I first started, I felt like eating healthy was like bougie and too expensive. And so I felt like I had to just keep on eating the things that I grew up eating and the normal foods I was used to because it would save me money. And that's not necessarily true. I feel like eating healthy actually saves you more money because you're a lot more mindful of the ingredients. Most of the things that you probably shop for in the supermarket, you cut completely, you eliminate because it's processed foods, because it's high in fructose, because it has a lot of sugar, added sugar content, because it has ingredients that you cannot pronounce. For whatever reasons, once you start paying attention to healthy eating habits, I feel like you eliminate so many things that normal everyday shopping carts include. And that actually helps you to save money because it's eliminating things from your shopping list and helping you to focus on clean foods, foods that are natural from natural sources and not super highly processed. And at the end of the day, buying in bulk has definitely been one of the things that helped me save money. Instead of like constantly refilling one thing, I will buy in bulk and then save it. But it does mean you have to be mindful, and meal prepping is something that I still think is really important for most people to do, because especially if you leave your home every day to go to work, if you work remotely like I do, meal prepping could save you a little bit of time. But in terms of money, not necessarily going to save me money to meal prep, because I can just bake in the oven every day or cook every single day. I live at home, I work at home, and I work where I live. So it's not necessarily going to save me money, but it does definitely save me time to meal prep. So I don't have to spend as much time. But I meal prepped every single day religiously when I was a teacher, and it saved me so much money and helped me get out of $20,000 of debt. So healthy eating and meal prepping, powerful combination, not only for your health, but for your wealth. And honestly, they're twins. Health and wealth are twins. If I ever have twins one day, I'm going to name them Health and Wealth, because truly they work together. And what's the point of having all this money if you're not healthy? You can't enjoy your money. You're wasting it all on medical costs and surgeries and pills and prescription. I mean, health and wealth, the point of having wealth is also to enjoy life and to be able to give. And you can't really necessarily do that when you rely on your income in order to live, because your health is so poor. And also you can't really do anything because your body physically, you can't really enjoy it. So taking care of your health and your body is really important so that you can maximize your wealth and really enjoy life. That's the whole point of saving up money, is to enjoy life, to lower your stress and to increase your quality of life, right? So yes, Janelle's eating healthy tips. I'll do a little series on that. And then in terms of the protecting your assets, yeah, that is also probably a whole separate live. And also, I also personally have some questions about that, because while I do have some basic insurance coverage, I think there's so much more to estate planning than even I have done. So there's this next level. Everything has levels to it, right? If you get the basics of everything, okay, move on to the next level, intermediate. Once you cover the intermediate, okay, now move on to advanced, if it makes sense financially, right? And I feel like I need to definitely learn more about estate planning. And my parents are getting older. There's a home that we own in the family, and not a lot of other assets besides that. But I want to learn as much as I can about estate planning too, because protecting those assets and also learning how to be really smart about passing those assets down from one generation to the next in the smartest possible way when it comes to taxes. That's another thing that I want to explore. So as I learn more, I'll share more, but also I think that's something I would want to bring experts on to talk about. Curtis Davis says, good evening. Good evening to you on YouTube. I got a question from Instagram that said, can you talk about MLMs? Right? MLMs. I think I have a Instagram reel about MLMs. I'll share it again in my stories this week. But it's a pretty controversial topic. You have a lot of people who talk about MLMs as an opportunity to flex your entrepreneurial muscles and make some side money. But at the end of the day, the only way MLMs really thrive is based off of you recruiting more people. So it's a modern day pyramid scheme. And ultimately you can work your butt off, and if you don't make any sales, you're not really getting income unless you recruit more people. And if you're not making sales and then you recruit more people and they don't make sales, you're pretty much duping people. You're just conning people to come into this pyramid scheme, knowing that you're not really making any money unless you get them to sign up under you. So personally, I like to stay away from and avoid MLMs. I do know a few people who had positive experiences with MLMs because they said of the benefits of it being social, kind of like a sorority or a fraternity. But in terms of the financial implications of it, I personally do not see it as a good financial move. I would recommend staying away from it and just finding other ways to flex your entrepreneurial muscles, because at the end of the day, these are models and structures and systems that are in place that you can just study, right? Rather than having to actually use their systems and procedures and products, you can use that model and apply it to whatever product or service you want to offer. And you don't necessarily have to go work under an MLM to be entrepreneurial, right? So I personally would say stay away from them. There's a little bit more context. Can you speak on the MLM companies selling financial products? They prey on students and young adults with the promise of financial independence. I have seen that, and it really does break my heart. I see a lot where they talk about financial independence and they use things like financial literacy for all. And it's unfortunate because those slogans sound really great and they give us hope and they sound impactful and important and wholesome. But when you actually study the structure of the organization behind it and you notice it's a modern day pyramid scheme, that should be a red flag. So personally, I would not get involved in any of these. I know that they vary from different types of things, like insurance. That's a big one in insurance. If you are selling insurance and you make more money by recruiting people and getting people to sign up for the product rather than actually helping people, then you might want to consider something else, because that is a modern day pyramid scheme, right? You should be able to make a modest living either by being fee only, which means every client that you help, you charge them a fee, just like a therapist, right? When you go to a therapy session and you see a therapist for an hour and you're done with your session, you pay them for that time. You pay them, whatever it is, $200 or $150, right? You pay them a fee only for that service that they provided you. You don't have to keep on paying them, or you don't have to have some other weird arrangement with them. So you want to look for fee-only financial services. If you need help with insurance, look for a fee-only person who's going to help you set that up. If you need help with investments, look for a fee-only financial advisor who's going to help you by only charging you a fee, not a percentage of assets under management, because that means they're going to manage all of your money and take a percentage every year of everything that you contributed plus your gains. I personally would never invest that way. I would never give anybody a percentage of all of my wealth. I would just say, if I need help, I'm going to sit with you for an hour. How much do you charge for that 1 hour? Oh, you charge $300? Okay, great. I'll pay you your $300 per hour, just like a lawyer, right? With a lawyer, you pay them by the hour, a retainer. So personally, I would say fee only is the way to go. If you find out that there's somebody who is offering a financial product or service and it's based on a structure that's like a pyramid scheme, then red flag, red flag, red flag, don't work with them. And honestly, anybody you work with in the financial space should be a fiduciary, whether that's a certified financial planner or CFP, whether that's a wealth manager, whether that's a financial advisor. Make sure that they are fiduciary, because if they're not fiduciary, that means that they might be promoting and pushing things to you that benefit them, but don't necessarily align with your financial goals. So you want to make sure that the advice and the products and the services that they're giving you and offering you are aligned with your goals and not their financial motivations. All right, let's see. Jodis Morales says, should I borrow money from my 401k to start a small business? I can make money back faster than the growth in my 401k. You know, this is similar to the question from Reddit, which was about, should I take out money from my brokerage to pay off the cars? Here's the difference, though. When you take money out of investments to pay for a car is a depreciating asset. So you're taking money from appreciating assets, stocks inside of your brokerage account, and taking that money and putting it towards a depreciating asset, a car. I personally don't like that. That's not a winning formula for wealth building. When you talk about taking money from your 401k, which is appreciating assets like stocks and index funds and ETFs, and using that money to start a business, which ideally a business would be an appreciating asset, but that's assuming your business will do well. Large majority of businesses fail within the first 5 years, or even less, within the first 2 to 3 years. So you really have to understand that you're taking a risk. And maybe it's a calculated risk. Maybe you've already run the numbers on your business and you have a strong clientele, you have high demand for your products or services, and you already have some pre-orders and a strong email list, and you know for sure that there's some revenue that you're projecting that you're going to get that would make it worthwhile. However, when you take money out of your 401k before you're 59 and a half, you are going to pay taxes and penalties. So not only are you going to pay income taxes on that money, but you're also going to add a 10% penalty tax for taking the money out too early. So another option, two other options that you might do. One is go out and apply for a small business loan. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations, local government agencies, banks that will offer you a small business loan so that you don't have to take it out of your 401k and deal with the income taxes and the tax penalties, because that's a lot of money that's going to get subtracted out of your 401k money. So if you don't want to deal with that, then let the money keep compounding until you're 59 and a half. Then you can take it out at 59 and a half and do a small business loan. Try to get one at a lower interest rate, and that you can pay it off over the next few years with your profits that you're making from your business, especially if you're confident that your business will be profitable very soon and has a strong demand for your product or service. Then in that case, why not take a small business loan, right? Now, the second option is to borrow money from your 401k and pay it back plus interest over a certain period of time. Now, the reason I don't like that option is because, like I said before, you're going to interrupt the compounding in that investment account. And the whole point of investing over a long time is not to time the market when it goes up or down, but have time in the market. That 401k money has been invested since it's got taken out of your paycheck and put into that account. And now you're going to interrupt the compounding by taking it out before you're 59 and a half. So since that money was for retirement specifically, I would personally leave it there for retirement. But a lot of people do borrow money from their 401k to either fund a business venture or to fund a real estate investment, etc. So if you are going to borrow money from your 401k, you have to understand that there's going to be a strict repayment plan plus interest fees that you have to pay on top of that. And there's this other one that a lot of people don't pay attention to, this other factor, which is that you're going to have to pay extra taxes. So whatever the interest is on that 401k loan, that money is going to be taxed twice. And taxes are already very high. So if you have to pay taxes once, it's annoying. Paying taxes twice, really freaking annoying. So there's entire laws against double taxation for a reason. But when it comes to that interest on that 401k loan, you are paying back that money with after tax income. But then you're putting that after tax income, again, it was already taxed. After it was taxed, you took it and paid back that interest on the loan. And then you let it grow and grow and grow until you're 59 and a half. And when you take it out, you're going to have to pay taxes again on it. Because when you withdraw money from a 401k, assuming it's a traditional 401k and not a Roth 401k, you're going to be taxed on that withdrawal. And so now you pay taxes when the money was earned, right? And took the after tax money and put it in there to pay the interest. Then the interest started growing in the account. And then when you took it out again later, you're going to pay taxes again. So I personally try to make a promise to myself that I will never borrow out of my 401k because I don't want to pay taxes twice. I don't want to pay taxes once. I mean, I don't mind paying my taxes. I pay my taxes every single year, even though it hurts. I do pay my taxes. I don't try to play these tax games, timing it so that I can have zero taxes. Like, I mean, look, eventually at some point, we need to contribute to society. There's so many things that we get from our tax dollars. I was literally teaching this today. I went to Miami-Dade Padron campus, and I was at the community college teaching a bunch of teachers in Miami that are going to teach financial literacy how to teach their students about taxes. And one of the games that we used was about your tax dollars and what are they used for. So I think if a lot of people learn more about what the tax dollars are used for, right? There's so many categories, from healthcare to running the government to different social services, different things that, allow us to actually take care of people who need to be taken care of, veterans benefits, the criminal justice system. There's so many things, commerce and banking. So when you think about, okay, but what does that look like? What does that actually look like? When they take your money, where does your money go? Well, it goes to things like FDIC insurance. It goes to things like VA benefits. It goes to things like unemployment paychecks that people get when they're struggling and they don't have work. Right now, there's a lot of people that are unemployed. We need to give them a little bit of money until they get their next job. Okay, might be you one day who's unemployed and you need help and support. You're gonna be real glad that there's unemployment taxes that are being that are putting set aside to help us out when we don't have a job, right? All of these things, roads, bridges. There's so many things that are being paid for with tax dollars. And so by trying to avoid paying taxes, I've been seeing so much topics of TikTok and Instagram content of like, I don't pay no taxes and I'm proud of it. As a business owner, I'm smart. I don't never pay taxes. I find that to be so cringe. I understand lowering your tax burden by investing some money back into your business so that can be a write-off and then you lower your taxes, but trying to eliminate taxes and never pay a penny in taxes ever when you generate millions of dollars because of the privilege of having a business in the United States of America, cringe. Okay, like really ask yourself where your values at. So personally, I think we just need more education about where do our tax dollars actually go. What are all of the actual programs that our tax dollars fund? And that's changing a lot because, of course, with Doge changes from late 2024 to early 2025, there were a lot of cuts to a lot of programs, things like PBS, things like the CFPB, things that have been around that our tax dollars help with are no longer going to be in the budget. When we look at the 2025 budget for federal income taxes, it's going to look very different from the 2024 budget for federal income tax spending. But the point is, a lot of these things are necessary to help people in this country. So personally, I would say I don't like paying taxes twice, but paying taxes once, that's your duty as an American citizen, all right? As an American worker, even if you're not a citizen, a lot of people who are not citizens still pay their taxes, right? So paying your taxes is an important part of your civic duty. Lowering your tax liability is fine, but I do think it's a little cringe when I see so many people promoting not paying any taxes at all. It's like cringe. So anyway, that would be my recommendation in terms of making a decision about borrowing against your 401k or withdrawing from your 401k if you're not 59 and a half years old yet. Basically, proceed with caution / try to avoid completely. All right. Chris said, hell no, don't do it. I agree with Chris. Don't do it. Don't do it. What are some banks you recommend? Yaya79 Boom on Instagram asked. All right, I'll tell you where I bank right now for my checking account with my debit card and my basic investing, like where my direct deposits hit and where my my like basic checking account is at. That is with Charles Schwab, and I really like them because they give you a little bit of interest on your checking. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit of interest, so it's an interest bearing checking account. And I really love that with the debit card, I can withdraw money anywhere, even abroad when I travel internationally without really having any problems or any fees. I don't keep a lot of money in there. I'm not going to lie. I keep a very low balance in there, just like 1 to 2 months of my spending and my rent, because I really like to maximize my saving and investments. Now, where do I save? I have a few different savings accounts. My family actually does our saving together for my parents, and we have that at Ally Bank, which is an online only bank. You will not see any physical locations for Ally Bank. And I like them because they allow you to put your spending into different buckets. They allow you to create multiple savings accounts for multiple different goals, and the interest is a little higher. It's at like high. It's like at 3.8 something percent right now in the summer of 2025. The customer service is great. The app is really easy to use. And, it's been really nice for my family. Now, for me personally, I have my cash savings in a high yield account with Wealthfront, which is an app that is primarily for robo advising and investments. But I really like it for the cash savings because you can get 5%. For me, I think it's 4% right now, but you can always get a little bit higher if you refer a few people, if you refer friends or family, so they can switch over to a high yield account as well. And everybody that creates a new account allows you to increase your interest a little bit higher. So I right now have my cash savings with Wealthfront, and then a few of my family that I have helped open high yield savings accounts with SoFi and with Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Any of these high yield savings accounts are a good option in 2025 because they all give you more than 4% or close to 4% interest. And that's where you really want to be. You just do not want to be getting 0.01% at Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all those big banks, major banks in the US that give you like triggity trash interest. All right. Anybody have any questions about money? Send a DM to Chris. Okay, Chris also out here trying to find customers and clients. Do not put money from your 401k. Chris, I agree with you on that. I really for sure do agree with you on that. It is the best practice and the best advice that any financial expert, you will just read as many financial literacy books as you can. You will see most people say do not do it. That being said, I also have some examples in life where I've met very successful people who have broken that rule and still become very wealthy and very successful. Now, I would say they got lucky, things worked out, but it is a risk, right? So some people pull money out of their 401k so they can buy real estate. Some people pull money out of their 401k so they can start a business, right? All of those are risks, and they might be calculated risks. Now, me personally, I wouldn't take those risks, but that's not to say that it's impossible to do it. You can do it, but that doesn't mean that you should do it, to Chris's point. All right, let's see. Any others here? Is it better to pay down debt or invest in the market? I think it depends on the interest rate of your debt. If it's a credit card, 100% pay down the debt because there's no point in investing in the stock market when you're being charged 22%, 23, 26% interest on a credit card debt that you owe. It doesn't make sense, right? So I would say for sure with credit card debt, try to focus aggressively on paying that credit card debt down as quickly as possible. And then you can get back to aggressively investing. It's okay to pause investing for a year or two while you focus on your debt payoff, because once you're debt free, you can then take all that money that you were making to debt payments every month and invest it. So it might just be like a short sacrifice. It might not be something where you're stopping investing, but just pausing it. And then if it's a low interest rate debt, like a mortgage, or even in some cases, a car loan or a personal loan, that's just a 1-digit interest rate, like 5%, 6%, even 7%. Once it starts getting to 7% or higher, 8%, 9%, in that case, then I would say, at that point, aggressively pay it down, because now you're getting close to the interest rate that is pretty much the average that you can expect to get from a 10-year period of investing in the stock market. So at that point, it doesn't really make sense because you're not going to have a big difference between your investment gains and the investment and the interest that you pay on your debt, unless the interest that you're paying on your debt is very, very low. So one example that I always love to give is Beyonce and Jay-Z. They have an $85 million mansion and they have a $30 million mortgage, right? Or they put down $30 million as a down payment and took out a $50K mortgage. Why would they take a $50K mortgage when they have billions? They could have paid for the house in cash, because they know that if they lock up that 50 million into the house, they can't use that 50 million to do anything else. and they probably have excellent credit, which means they qualify for the lowest mortgage rates. So they probably locked in a 3-4% interest rate on that mortgage for their mansion and put down 30 million for a down payment. And then that $50 million mortgage loan growing at 3 or 4%, that's money that they can pay slowly over time while they take that 50 million of cash and invest it and grow it at much higher rates. Let's say they make 15%, or say they make 12% or 10% return or 20% return. There's a big difference between the 3 or 4% they're paying on that mortgage versus the 20% or 15% that they would get from an investment return on either equity investments with stocks, whether that be real estate investments, or whether that would be business ventures that they have. I mean, they own a bunch of businesses between the two of them. So at the end of the day, you really just have to weigh that. How much is the interest on that debt? If it's really low, 3%, 4%, 5%, I wouldn't focus on it. I would just, put those payments on minimum, maybe a little bit more than the minimum. But if it's interest rates that are 20%, 15, 19%, 26%, that's high as heck. You want to definitely be focused on aggressively paying that credit card debt, those high interest rates down, so that you can then come back to aggressively investing without really, paying really high interest rate debt while you're investing. But I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong answer. I just think the math has to make sense. What's the best way to lower your taxes to benefit yourself? The best way to lower your taxes is actually to take as many deductions as you legally are qualified to take. So start learning the tax code. Take a look at what are the deductions that you qualify for. And if there are more deductions that you can get that you're not taking right now, start getting those deductions, right? So an easy example, generally, if you don't itemize your taxes, then you can take a standard deduction, which means that you right away off the bat, if you're single, you're taking away like $12,500, $13,000, right? Right away, say your income is $100,000. Right away, you're going to lower that by $12,000, $13,000 just because you're taking the standard deduction, right? As a single taxpayer. If you're married, it's different. If you're married filing together, it's different. But for a single taxpayer, you immediately deduct the standard deduction amount. So it means you're not going to pay taxes on the first $12,000 to $13,000 of your income because it's a deduction deducted from what you owe taxes on. Then keep looking for more deductions. In my case, I max out my 401k every year. So that's another $23,500 that gets subtracted from my taxable income that I owe on top of the standard deduction. So now I don't have to pay taxes on 12 to 13,000. I also don't have to pay taxes on another 23,500. So the more deductions that I can take and qualify for, the lower I'm going to keep making my taxable income, which means that they're only going to tax me on a much smaller percentage of my earned income instead of all of my earned income. So, excuse me. So, long story short, learn the tax code, learn some of those deductions, learn the basics. You don't have to become a tax specialist or an expert on taxes, but just start reading and learning about what are some of the deductions that I might not be taking advantage of. What are some of the credits that I might qualify for? So deductions and credits are a little bit different because with deductions, it's subtracted from your taxable income. But if it's a credit, even if it goes below zero, you will actually then get a refund. So credits are really great versus deductions, because with deductions, if you keep deducting and then it goes below zero, oh, too bad, so sad. It doesn't count. Once it hits zero, once it goes below zero, it basically counts as zero. Versus if you keep subtracting for a credit, if you have a credit that you get back and it takes you down below zero. So let's say like a credit brings you to negative 1,000. They're not going to tax you on money that you didn't earn. They're going to give you a refund, $1,000 refund. So credits are great because it allows you to really get that dollar for dollar. So like a lot of times a family tax credit or other types of credit would be really good for you to look into if you qualify, because that's dollar for dollar benefit in terms of taxes. So these are all things, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, this is a good time to start learning the basics of taxes. If you are a teacher, because I know I have a lot of teachers that follow me. If you're a teacher, there's a free tax course that you can take from NGPF. If you go to ngpf.org, go to Teacher PD and sign up for the certification course for taxes, you can become an expert on tax basics just with that free course. All right, let's see. Don Juan 9 said, why should we be paying taxes when corporations and high wealth individuals use a bunch of those loopholes to avoid their taxes? Politically charged, but a real question. You're 100% correct. A lot of wealthy individuals and corporations use the tax code to their advantage. So what that tells me is that if you're motivated by just paying nothing in taxes, then you really don't care about, making sure that you contribute to society, to the American society. You really don't want your money to go towards unemployment taxes for people, so unemployment payments and unemployment checks when people are out of a job. You really don't have any empathy for people who are not working for a few months or for a year until they find a new job. You especially now as AI is starting to take over a bunch of jobs, a lot of people are going to start losing jobs. If you don't have any empathy, you don't care about that. All you care about is not paying any money on your corporate taxes. Well, then of course you could go buy a yacht, or you could go buy a fancy, G-Wagon. You could go buy a bunch of stuff and then write that all off as business expenses. And let's say if you owed $100,000, but then you went and spent $100,000 on a Tesla for your business and say, oh, my car is going to be using this car. My business is going to be using this car for business purposes. Well, then sure, you can get rid of the taxes that you owe. But that to me is like, if your business really needed the Tesla, fine. But if you only bought the Tesla for your business to avoid taxes, like that's the kind of values that you want to have. That's the kind of characteristics that you want to define you and your company. Just understand that that's what you're about, and stand on that 10 toes down. That's what you're about. As an individual person in this country earning income, you don't have as many tax benefits as an investor or as a corporation. So if you're interested in really getting more tax advantages so you can pay a little bit less in taxes, then you need to be an investor, meaning that you're investing so the capital gains tax brackets are much lower over the long term than earned income tax brackets are. And secondly, corporations also have a lot more tax benefits. So maybe you start a business. You can either be a business owner or an investor, and you automatically get better tax treatment than a regular income earner who works for a paycheck in a 9 to 5 or works a job instead of being an investor or being a business owner. That doesn't mean that you should be vengeful. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what kind of values and character traits do you have? If you really want to just be vengeful and not have empathy and be the kind of person who moves through the world with trying to get vengeance, sure, then milk the system and find ways to legally not pay any taxes. If you feel good about that, do you, boo? I'm just saying, me personally, cringe. I would never feel boastful or proud to brag on the fact that I'm not paying any taxes. Even when I owed taxes, I found random ways to not pay them, even if it was legal or not, doesn't matter. Like, the point is, I'm finding ways to get out of paying taxes because I don't want to pay taxes. When I know the great need, and I have so much empathy in my heart for people who don't have a job for 6 months or for 8 months and need unemployment checks. That money has to come from somewhere. That money comes from the income taxes that the federal government takes from your earned income. So I understand it's frustrating to see the tax code benefits investors and business owners much more than workers. And if you don't like that, great. I understand that you might want to start investing. You might want to start a business so you're not just a W-2 employee, because as a W-2 employee, you do not really get many tax perks at all. So I get the frustration, but I wouldn't say it's to the point where you should say, I'm not going to pay taxes because wealthy individuals and corporations basically don't pay them. Yeah, they legally avoid them, but that doesn't make them cool. And it doesn't make you cool to not pay taxes. It just basically makes you shady, just as shady as them. So look, you could do that. Do that if you want to. I'm just saying, me personally, cringe, right? Because I know people who have lost their job and depended on those unemployment checks until they could get a job again. I've seen how that impacts people. I see that they need those unemployment checks to get by until they get that next job. I see what tax money goes towards in this country. There's so many different programs that, I understand the impact that money makes. And yes, there's people who abuse the system, they lie, or they, get extra money that they're not supposed to get. And sure, there's rotten apples everywhere. There's rotten apple police officers, even though there's some good police officers. There's rotten apple teachers who don't really teach well and just go to work and put videos on the TV and don't really want to work hard to teach kids, while there's also amazing teachers out there. There's rotten apple insurance agents who just sell you crappy insurance policies because they just want to make a bunch of profit off of you. While there's also incredible insurance agents who want to help families protect their wealth and have really good policies in place. There's bad apples and good apples in any industry, in any career, in any field. So decide, do you want to be a good apple or do you want to be a bad apple? Right? That's basically what you're asking. I don't even think it's much of a politically charged question. I think it's more of a type of question around philosophy, right? What is your philosophy on life? Do you think you should just take advantage as much as possible and just be like a shark, a wolf, like I don't care, I'm eat or be eaten approach? Or do you want to be the kind of person who understands that as humans, we're craving connection with each other and should be looking out for each other? I don't know. I think that's kind of the question. It's more of a philosophical one. Cat.qp on Instagram said, I love your book. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cat. I really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to wrap this up soon, but on the topic of my book, I just want to let you all know that my book comes with a free guide. And my free guide has so many things in here that I feel like I haven't really talked about it a lot. I need to push this more because the first thing that you get when you download my free guide is you get a spreadsheet that has over 200 creators on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, that talk about finances, personal finance, money management content. So if you like my content and you know there's a few other creators out there like me and you like us, there's hundreds more. And I have the spreadsheet that I sat down one by one and put a list with links to all of their pages of 200 plus creators. There is not a list out there like this, I promise you, because I was looking for one and I couldn't find it. So I made it. So if you want a spreadsheet with over 200 content creators on Instagram, YouTube, on all the different platforms, Facebook, all the things, go to mindyourmoneybook.com and download the free guide that pairs with my book. And if you haven't read the book, Mind Your Money, while you're at it, get a copy of the book. It's a really great book for basics, early financial literacy information like banking, budgeting, credit scores, understanding the credit system, debt repayment, investments, all the basics for somebody who is just starting out, or you know the basics, but you don't really have much beyond that. So it's a really great early book to read. And then, of course, there's a lot of more advanced books around investments, taxes, and all kinds of other things. But this is a really good basic financial literacy book. Anyway, the free guide that comes with the book, you don't even have to buy the book to get the free guide. The free guide is at mindyourmoneybook.com. Just click download the free guide, and then you'll get all of these things. 200 plus creators, money hashtags that I like to follow, a list of my favorite financial literacy books, accounts that I like to follow, news outlets that I like to follow, apps, free trackers. Like I have a budget template in there that you can use for Google Sheets that it automatically will budget for you. You just put your income in at the top and it will automatically create a sample budget for you that you should try to follow. I have a list of all the personal finance, all of the states that require personal finance in schools. I have information about backdoor Roth IRAs and Roth IRAs if you're interested in that. And then I have a glossary because there's so much terminology and vocabulary when it comes to finance and investing specifically. So if any of this stuff interests you, go to mindyourmoneybook.com, download the free guide. It is there. I do need to update it for 2025 because it's from 2024 still, but it still has all this stuff for free. You don't even have to pay to buy the book to get it. So I'm going to be back live again tomorrow. If I didn't get to your question today and you really wanted me to answer it, just pop in my DMs and let me know and I'll get to it tomorrow. And then, of course, also, if there are any other questions or topics or like ideas or themes that you want me to explore, I try to go live every single day. Sometimes I miss because things happen. But when I'm live, I either, take questions from y'all. I come with a question or I look at stuff from my DMs and my emails. So you can always email me, missbehelpful@gmail.com, or you can comment on a video on my YouTube page or on Instagram. You could, of course, always DM me on Instagram too, because I do check my DMs a lot. All right, y'all. Lots of comments today. I really appreciate them. If you have questions that I didn't get to, just write them to me, comment them somewhere, and I will make sure to come back to it in a future live.